You froze,
I
Connor.
can record it. Oh, no, you're good. You're good to go.
Okay. All right, so I am recording.
Yep.
Hello, Miss Sandy.
Hi. I gotta help you with the password, miss. We gotta get rid of it.
I thought I did.
I
Ellie
know.
Beth, did you have to use the password to get in?
Yeah.
We gotta do it. Happy snowy day. It is snowing down here.
It just like really picked up like crazy up here.
I
Hey, Crystal.
apologize. I don't normally take phone calls, but that was my son's doctor.
Very understandable.
Hi, Crystal.
Hi.
How are you today?
Good.
All right.
Oh, there's only one Owen should, Mr. Sheen.
Connor, do we have a do now for these guys?
Yep. So can you not see my screen?
I can see it.
Oh, okay.
I
Yeah.
just-
So as we come into class, we should be heading to checkpoint 2
Mhm.
first, making sure that I actually assigned it to you. And then second, you can get started on part 1, section 1. And then Ellie, Beth, and Crystal, if you could just give me like a thumbs up or a check yes, or just say in the chat that you have the checkpoint and you're getting started on section 1.
Can you put the Padlet in the chat for me and for Christy so we can participate?
You bet, miss. You bet. Thank you, Crystal and Ellie Beth. You two are both, in all the classes I've had you both in, you're very good at responding to teachers, and I really appreciate it. We're going to give people, I think, till 1:10, just because it's only the two of you right now, and the snow is maybe holding people up here.
It's generous of you, mister. The snow is keeping me put, I'll tell you that. I can't go anywhere.
We have at least one more student on the way. Welcome, Rozelle.
Razel, nice to see you.
Hello.
So glad you're here.
So, Rozelle, we're just heading into Summit. We're opening checkpoint 2 and getting started on part 1, section 1.
All right, gotcha.
we're gonna get started at 1:10. My hope is that we don't always have to wait 10 minutes to get started, but it's okay.
That translates to arrive on time.
This is civics, correct? I just want to make sure I'm in the right class.
Yep,
All right.
yep.
Roselle, did you enroll in the class?
Yeah,
Okay. I'm looking at the enrollment, Roselle, and I'm not seeing your name.
I'm also not seeing too many responses on the Padlet yet. Maybe it's because we're deep in thought.
Roselle, do you need the enrollment code?
that's weird. I should be in it. Let me try to put it in again. I actually have the code.
You have the code? Okay.
Yeah.
I don't see your name here.
Hey, Nick, welcome. So everybody right now should head to Summit, have checkpoint 2 open, and I'm giving you about 2 more minutes to answer the questions for part 1, section 1.
Mister, I can't write on the Padlet. It doesn't give me the option to make a post.
Oh no. Why did that happen?
It doesn't have that, the little plus sign in the bottom corner that's supposed to,
You don't have plus signs underneath the questions?
no,
Oh no.
I got nothing. It's like just I can look at it. It looks nice. Ellie, Beth, and Crystal, can you guys write on it?
No, it don't let me.
Oh,
Gotta say something, girl.
yeah, speak up, yeah.
Jeez,
I was just gonna say something when you said
Plain.
something.
I beat you to it.
Well, I think I go here to settings.
All right. Roselle, were you able to enroll?
I'm currently just like it's just like loading.
Okay.
I can also, Linda, I can add him to your section from the admin end. That might be faster. You want to
Okay,
do that?
that's fine.
Roselle, I'll try that, and then you can just refresh your screen and see. how
All
it
right.
Ellie Beth, can you try now on the Padlet? I just changed the settings. I just don't know if it's the right setting.
It still don't let me.
Can you refresh your page?
Yeah, I did.
Oh, you're so smart. Okay. Well, that's okay. This didn't work today, and I don't know why, but it's 1:10 and we need to get started. So let's just discuss it. So you can share your answers either out loud or we can share our answers in the chat. Let me stop sharing my whiteboard and I'll instead share this Padlet. So let's look at this first question. How do you think ad makers use emotion to manipulate or motivate people? And you can just call out your answer or you can type your answer in the chat, whatever is easiest for you.
I think they use emotion to like make it like hit harder, like more like make it like more personal in a way.
Okay, to like increase the impact of the ad,
Yeah.
like in many ways. And and so how do you think, Roselle, how do you think that would like motivate people in terms of like political campaigns?
Like political campaigns. I think it would like make them like look at politics more importantly, like actually dive deeper into
Mm.
them and pay more attention to them
Hmm.
rather than just like, just like who's the president, knowing like the basics.
Okay. All right, that's interesting. Who's next on my screen here? Nick or Crystal, what do you think about, like, what do you think that ad makers are trying to do when they're trying to get an emotional response from their viewers? Oh, I see Angela wrote in the chat, they try to relate to other people's lives. Angela, I think that's really strong. Could you expand on that and think about how relating to someone's life in regards to a political campaign, like, could be more impactful for that person? Okay, I'm feeling a little bit like I'm teaching into the void right now, and I'm not hearing from anyone. So right now, could I just get like a thumbs up or a check yes or a hand raise from people so that I know you're at least here with me?
I'm with you, mister.
Thank you, Roselle.
I thought that question was for Angela, so I wasn't answering.
It's okay. It was for Angela, but I'm just trying to.
I forgot how to thumbs up, but I'm still here.
Okay, thank you, Nick.
There
Oh,
she
there we
goes.
go. Oh, Andrew was just writing a very wonderful and long out, drawn out response. It's like when someone would struggle, they would kind of say, like in political speaking, they would try to say that they would benefit them in a way and do others that may not. I think that's like a really good point, Angela, that like when you, particularly in the scope of a political campaign, when you sort of try to like press that emotional button, like you're getting a response from them that like connects on a different level. And you also like sort of, at least subconsciously, make this connection with this person, and that prevents you from making that connection with the other candidate. Right? Like if I am watching a Joe Biden ad and I really buy into what Joe Biden is saying because the sort of whatever emotion he's trying to elicit from me really speaks to me in his ad, then I'm going to start kind of ignoring anything Donald Trump has to say anyway, because he's already hooked me that way.
Mr. Sheehan, do you want to go right to Summit and go through our learning objectives and skills?
Yeah, we will in 1 minute. I just want to get to this last question,
Okay.
which fear is like a very common motivator in political ads. And we are going to look at, in this checkpoint, 2 good examples of how politicians used fear to motivate voters. And I haven't heard from Nick or Crystal or Brianna yet. And I was wondering if one of you could share why you think fear is such a common motivator for political ads.
I feel like for political ads, they use fear to try to like say, oh, if some, let's use gun control, for example. Some people are afraid of like guns and stuff. So for a political run, they could use an ad and say something about lowering the gun control or something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Why do you think though that that is like more, why would making people scared of guns or scared of crime, Nick, be considered more effective than like talking about, I don't know, presenting gun control in like a more um consistent's not the word I want, but like a more pragmatic like approach to it?
Because take school shootings for example.
Mhm.
People see that and say younger people, sometimes older people, are getting their hands on these weapons and could do things with them that'll harm a lot of people. So if you think about it, people will be afraid of guns, which makes them want to like go for more gun control.
Mhm.
So
Yeah. And I think that's what it's about, is like when you can try to like play on a fear for someone, like that's a triggered response. It's like a very natural, I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this, but there's like a flight or fight response pretty typically when we as human beings and animals in general are exposed to something that makes them afraid. And so it's a it's a really good motivator because we as human beings like have this biological response to fear that we can't help but like deal with. And so if you can, I think as Nick is pointing out, right, if you can play up the danger of school shootings and you try to make parents afraid that a school shooting will happen, they will presumably go to the polls and vote for greater gun control. On the flip side of that, and Nick, I think guns is a really great example. If you are someone who is a gun enthusiast, you are a gun hobbyist, the advertisements by Republican officials who say like Democrats are going to take your guns away play on that fear just on the opposite end of the spectrum. And so this like trying to really elicit that biological response that we have and in many ways like don't have control over is something that ad makers use often. And it's really important for us to be aware of that when we are in or when we are looking at political campaigns. So let's look at now, if everybody could be in Summit and on checkpoint 2, there's a couple things that I added from last week that I want to go over before we really get going here. So once you're in Summit and you have checkpoint 2 up in front of you, just give me a thumbs up or a check yes, so I know that you're with me. And I stopped sharing my screen so you can have your own screens up in front of you. Thank you, Razel. Thank you, Brianna. Thank you, Crystal. So if we could all be looking at that first block, that intro block where it lists the times and things, there's a section called learning objectives that I want us to look at for this checkpoint. And I'm wondering let's see, who haven't I heard from yet? Ellie Beth, would you mind reading the first learning objective for us? And then maybe Crystal, you could read the second learning objective for us.
Identify how the ways in which politicians use fear to motivate voters.
So this is the first thing we have to look at, right? Is how do politicians use fear? Crystal, could you read objective number 2 for us, please?
Describe why politicians use fear to motivate voters.
Perfect, thank you. That's the second piece. So once we understand the how, we need to be able to describe the why. Like, why is it important for us to understand? I'm sorry, that's not how I want to say this. We need to you need to be able to explain why politicians do that. So once you understand the how, you can explain the why. The final one is to reflect on the impact of these negative ads and how they influence public opinion. We're looking at a political ad from the 60s today, and Thursday we're going to look at a political ad from the 80s. Both were really playing on people's fears at the time, and both had very profound impacts on society moving forward, particularly the one from the 80s. Like, we are living in the influence of that ad still today. And then I want to point out that section on skills. Remember, we're looking at selecting evidence and explaining your evidence. So we're going to be pulling things from the videos and passages we read. I want to, though, take this opportunity to explain that not because we're looking at videos frequently in this class, the way you use evidence is going to be a little bit different, right? We can't copy and paste something from a video and put it into a table in the checkpoint. So you need to describe the scenes that you're trying to pull from. And if you need help with that, make sure you talk to Mrs. I or myself. And then our other skill is about making connections and inferences. And we talked a lot about this last week, in that we're not always going to find the exact thing that we want to help prove our claim. So we have to be choosing pieces of evidence that we can make inferences about, and then we can connect to other pieces of evidence to help us flesh out our claim and really think deeply about what we're looking at. How am I doing my time? I'm doing well. All right, if we could now all scroll down to part 1, section 2. You should see a picture of a guy with his hand raised like this. Can you just give me a check yes, or let me know in the chat that you have section 2 in front of you? Thank you, Ellie Beth. Thank you, Miss Little, with the thumbs up. That's perfect too. Thank you, Brianna. Thank you, Angela. All right. So I'm going to give us some context on what was happening in the 1960s. It's going to be very brief. I can't really talk about the 60s in 2.5 minutes here, but I'm going to do my best. And then I'm going to ask for some volunteers to read the passage, and we're just going to keep working our way through here. So in the 1960s, it was a moment in time when there was a tremendous amount of change happening. And it was, in my opinion, as an amateur historian here, it stems a lot from the men and women who served in the military during World War II now coming of age into in a time when they're ready to make some major changes. And so in the 1960s, we see a tremendous amount of innovation in terms of technology. We see a tremendous amount of innovation in regards to both political movements, activist movements, and also like real change. Right? We did have a Voting Rights Act in the 1960s. We saw a tremendous amount of progress forward. We also saw at this time the world start to shrink a lot more. And what I mean by that is we as Americans were trading our goods with other countries significantly more, and other countries were growing significantly more, especially the Soviet Union. And that started what's referred to as the Cold War. And it was this arms buildup, this financial buildup between the United States and the Soviet Union. And we didn't actually right? America and Russia never actually fought each other. But there was always this sort of like tension between the two countries. And that was really fresh in people's minds in the 1960s. There was a lot of fear about nuclear weapons. There was a lot of fear about nuclear missiles in particular, right? Not just bombs dropping, but countries being able to shoot a nuclear missile from their country all the way into America and vice versa. So while it was this moment of great innovation and great change, there also was a lot of fear. And we're going to look at how Lyndon Johnson's ad plays on some of that fear. Could I have a volunteer read the first section here? Maybe Nick or Rozelle, if you could volunteer to read for me.
Which the first
Right where
one?
it said, oh, my bad. If you
That's
wanna read, you
okay.
can.
Yeah, Rozelle, can you read that? So you're reading part 1, section 2.
Yeah, let me
If you could read right from the beginning down to serve the remainder of the presidential term. And then, Nick, I'm going to ask you to finish the passage for me.
All right. Political advertisements began airing on television in the 1950s, and one of the most famous aired in 1964 during the presidential campaign between, how do you say that word?
Incumbent.
Incumbent President Lyndon Baines Johnson, a Democrat from Texas, and Barry Goldwater, Republican senator from Arizona. Johnson had served as vice president under John F. Kennedy, who was assassinated on November 22nd, 1963. Johnson took the oath of office just 2 hours later aboard Air Force One and served the remainder of the presidential term. In 1964, Johnson's
Actually,
campaigning to
Rozelle, could I
remain
ask
as
you to take a break there and have Nick take
Yep.
over?
Yep.
Thank you.
All right. Johnson was campaigning to remain as president. Goldwater Johnson's opponent was considered to be extremely conservative, even by many fellow Republicans. The Cold War, in which the United States and its allies in support of democracy, hold on, I closed the tab on accident, of democracy were squared off against the Soviet Union and its allies in support of communism. It was at its height in 1964, and Goldwater argued for aggressive military action to stop the spread of communism, including the use of nuclear weapons. Specifically, Goldwater argued that US military commanders should be granted the authority to use small conventional nuclear weapons without authorization from the president.
Yeah. So a couple of things that we're looking at here. Yes, thank you, Rozelle and Nick, for reading. We're at a time of like major change, right? John F. Kennedy was just assassinated. Lyndon Johnson, who became the incumbent president because Kennedy was assassinated, is running for president. Johnson and Kennedy were very progressive Democrats. Goldwater, a very conservative Republican. Barry Goldwater, also a major war hero. I think, yeah, it says he was the major general in the US Air Force. So we have those two guys like squaring off and on opposite ends of the spectrum in terms of their approach to governing. What I really, this is a little bit of an aside, but if we could all look at that political cartoon, the guy who's supposed to be representing America in blue, right, is holding a money bag. And then this other guy is supposed to represent the Soviet Union, and he's holding a hammer and sickle. I never saw this image before I put this checkpoint together, and I absolutely love it because it really sums up the source of power that both of these countries had. America had a tremendous amount of money. It was the only economy that didn't get destroyed by World War II. And so it had that sort of financial power and influence that it could leverage during the Cold War. Russia didn't have money, but they put all of their people to work for the government. So the people of Russia were sort of the power base for Russia. And I know this is an aside and we probably don't really need it, but I want to point out, I'm going to take this opportunity to show that like America and Russia were really butting heads at this time. Tensions were really high. A lot of America's power was based in its financial power, and a lot of Russia's power was based in its manufacturing and industrial power, fueled by the people who lived there. How am I doing on time? Okay. Do we have any questions on this before we move on to the next section? And if you could just give me a thumbs up, a check yes, or tell me in the chat that you're ready to move on, that's great. Or just send me your question and I'm happy to answer it.
I don't see any questions in the chat.
I'm all good, mister.
Okay. I'm getting a couple all goods. I'm not seeing any hand raising or thumbs up though right now. I just want to make sure we're all still here before we move on. Thank you, Angela. Brianna, Crystal. Thank you, Nick. Thank you, Crystal. So we should now all be on section 3. And I'm going to give everybody 2 minutes to answer this question. Based on what you just read in the passage above, what do you think supporters of Johnson would say about Barry Goldwater? Remember, Johnson was a progressive Democrat. He passed the Civil Rights Act. He was John F. Kennedy's vice president. And then you have Barry Goldwater, who is a war hero, politically very conservative. So take 2 minutes and you're going to write your own answers in that box there. And then I'm going to ask everybody to share out at 1:35. I'm wondering if we could have, I'm looking for 3 people at least to share their response to section 3 here. And if you're nervous about reading it, you can just copy and paste it into the chat and I'll read it for you. Oh, that's Miss I's response. Thank you, Miss I.
Mr. I said that I think the supporters of Johnson might think that he's crazy. Might think that Barry is crazy because he's trying to argue to get like aggressive military action to stop communism, and it's basically like he's trying to like start like another war kind of.
Yeah, I think there was a very legitimate fear that that is exactly what Barry Goldwater was going to do. And I think even more so, there was fear that under Barry Goldwater, military generals would have like this unprecedented amount of power in the United States of America. So when in America right now, the only person who can authorize the use of nuclear missiles or nuclear weapons at all is the president. Now, that has been since we started using nuclear weapons in the 1940s. It is only the president who can authorize their use. And that's in many ways not just to prevent like the devastation of wherever we are attacking, but to make sure we prevent other countries from using them against us, right? If we get into a nuclear war, there's going to be a tremendous amount of devastation, potentially like the destruction of the entire world. And in the 1960s, like we were really afraid that that could happen. We were on the precipice of that. The Cuban Missile Crisis was this moment in history when we as Americans were afraid that the Soviets were building missiles, nuclear missiles, and nuclear missile launch pads in Cuba. And so that had just recently happened. I think that was 61. That was still pretty fresh. Children in school were still doing like nuclear fallout drills, hiding under their desks. Most school buildings, and you probably can still see them on buildings today, were like bomb shelters. And so this fear of the Cold War escalating into a real war and nuclear attack was very real. And Rozelle, I think you hit the nail on the head. Like there were people who were afraid that Barry Goldwater was crazy and was going to get us into a nuclear war that was going to lay waste to the whole world. So if we could all move on to section 4. We're going to watch this political this political ad called The Daisy Girl. Oh, thank you, Miss I. 1962. This is considered like one of the most effective ads in the history of political campaigns, based on what I read about it. And you will, after we watch this, you're going to answer these questions. I think what I'd like to try right now, because as I understand it, the video will work better for you. Let's take a step back. We'll take, the video is only a minute long and we got these questions. Why don't we take 5 minutes? We can all turn our videos off and mute ourselves. Watch the Daisy Girl advertisement, answer the questions, and then let's all come back here for why don't we come back for 1:50? I'll give you 10 minutes to complete this section. So can I just get a thumbs up or a hand raise, or let me know in the chat that you have this up in front of you and you are ready to watch this political ad. Thank you, Allie Beth. Thank you, Rozelle. Thank you, Angela. So we'll all come back together at 1:50. writing in the chat too, but if something's not working or you're not understanding one of the questions, please make sure you ask me or Miss I. Networking. Yeah. Folks, we have just about 5 minutes left before we all come back together. Folks, this is our 2-minute warning here. If you have finished the questions, feel free to take a peek at section 5 before we all come back together here.
Minister, you said that we were gonna move on to 5 once we're done, or?
Yep. Yeah, if you finished early, you can take a peek at question 5.
All right, gotcha.
Still have 1 more minute. Angela and Brianna, I'm hoping that you will share out first with us here. Well, there you go, Angela. Thank you. All right, folks, it's 1:50. Let's come back together. If you could just give me a thumbs up, a check yes, let me know in the chat that you are here with us again. Angela shared in the chat a response to that first question. Why do you think the ad maker chose a little girl as the focus of this ad? And she said, I think she is feeling. Oh, wait. Andrew, are you answering the second question or the first question? Or are you just sharing a general?
She said she's answering the second one.
The second one. Okay, perfect. Brianna, could you share? Did I just lose Brianna? Yes, I did. Okay. Ellie Beth, would you mind sharing your answer to that first question? Why do you think the ad maker chose a little girl? Are you still with us, Ellie Beth?
I'll answer that one too if you want.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
I think they chose a little girl because one, she's counting down and like that leads to like the ending of it.
Mm-hmm.
And like to some people, like they think as kids as their future and like for them like that. So I was like, that is kind of like what people live for.
Mm-hmm.
Certain people, like for kids and stuff. So I think that was one of the reasons.
Yeah, I think it's like very simply like your children are going to die if there's a nuclear war, right? And if you vote for Barry Goldwater, like there's going to be a nuclear war and your little girl is just going to be picking flowers one day and then the next day like get destroyed. And then Angela, do you mind reading your second one too?
Yeah. I said, I think she is feeling sad because eventually there's gonna be no more petals on the flower,
Mm-hmm.
and I think they are feeling scared because they have to choose between either getting along together or end up just dying.
Yeah. And then Ellie Beth, in response to the first one, chose the little girl as the focus of the ad so people can see how dangerous the weapon it is, right? And take away innocent life. I think that really hits the nail on the head. Nick, would you mind sharing your answer to the voiceover says, we must either love each other or we must die. What did that imply to you? And what do you think it meant to the viewer at the time?
What was the voiceover you said again?
So the voiceover says we must either love each other or we must die. And what does that mean to you? And what do you think it meant to the people who were watching this ad in 1964?
Well, to me, that's like a sign of like peace. Like it's referring to like we should have peace instead of hating people.
Okay,
And to other people, to other viewers, I feel like they think the same I would.
got it. And then I think it's pretty clear, what emotion do you think the ad maker is trying to use to motivate voters? They're definitely trying to use fear, right?
Yeah.
And so could I just get everyone in the chat to type either it was very effective or it was not effective? Thank you, Razel. You can just write very or not. Thank you, Angela. Thank you, Miss I. Yeah. So we're gonna find out. We only have 6 minutes left. We're gonna find out in this next passage down here that it was wildly effective. Just in the interest of time, I'll read this passage, and I'm actually gonna skip that first paragraph and just read this second and third paragraph. The vaunted Daisy ad, as that suggested, Goldwater would start a nuclear war. It never mentioned his name, right? They never say Barry Goldwater is going to start a nuclear war. They never say that Johnson is going to stop a nuclear war. They just imply that there's potential for there to be a nuclear war. And that was enough to motivate people. The commercial evoked a deep feeling in many people that Goldwater might actually use nuclear weapons, wrote Tony Schwartz, creator of the famous ad. This distrust was not in the Daisy spot. It was in the people who viewed the commercial. And so this is a really important tactic to understand, right? It's not that the advertisement encourages you to distrust Barry Goldwater. It's that you as a person already distrust Barry Goldwater, and this commercial sort of reinforces that in a very subconscious way. The strategy of massive negative campaigning on television did the trick, as the president crushed Goldwater by a 16 million vote margin, 43 million to 27 million. Johnson won 486 electoral college to Barry Waters' 52. The president fared poorly only in the Deep South, losing Mississippi, Alabama, South Carolina, Georgia, and Louisiana, along with Goldwater's Arizona. In the last 4 minutes here, you're going to answer the reflection question in section 6. The short-term impact of this ad campaign was Johnson being elected president. What may be the long-term impact of using fear in this way to motivate voters? Remember, this is a reflection question. There are absolutely no wrong answers here. I just want to hear your own thoughts and words. Once you've completed that question, just let me know that you're all set in the chat and you are free to go for the day.
I'm just going to take a quick minute and thank all of you who have participated and read. It's just great to hear all of your voices, and it's so meaningful, especially when we're not in our regular school setting and we're in the Zoom room. So thank you. And I know sometimes it takes a little prodding, but it was great to hear all your voices. Thank you.
Very much appreciate it. With class being over, you are free to go. I would encourage you, the 4 of you right now, to double check your checkpoint ones, see what you have left to complete on those. It would be really great if by the end of this week, you made sure that you completed both checkpoint 1 and checkpoint 2, and we went into February break without any work hanging over us.
And we will be completing checkpoint 2 on Thursday. So mark your calendar, be here live.
Yep.
Wait, so
All right, thank
February?
you so much, everyone.
Did you have a question, Zoe?
Yeah. Is February break this coming week or the week after?
It's next week.
This one.
All right,
coming up,
gotcha.
yeah.
All right. All right. Thank you, guys.
Bye, Raza.
Thank you.
All right. Have a good day, guys.
You too, sweetheart.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Sandy. So I'm going to stop recording.
Yeah, I just sent you an email that my dad came in the middle of it because he's picking up Sorrel from school and he's all flustered about why aren't they dismissing early and I'm going to go get her right now and I'm not going to wait. So I was like, to make a decision and go. But he wanted to like talk it through. Well, they're not going to release her to me and you have to call. So anyway, I asked you to send the recording to me too because I like missed a whole giant chunk of that while he and I were talking.
Well, hopefully the recording works.
It should. Yeah, it says it's still recording, but
All right.
they give you probably know this, Linda, but they give you.
Oh, I know what you're saying. Okay.